Hi. So we're reacting to a video called "How the Success of Baldur's Gate 3 Proved Bioware Wrong" by Bruce BSK. Um, Interesting video. There's a lot wrong with that title in the first place because obviously, how does Baldur's Gate 3 prove Bioware wrong? What was Bioware doing that Baldur's Gate 3's existence means that they're wrong? How does that work? So we're going to be going to the video to find out that question, and also to point out any issues with his logic.
Larian Studios.
Additionally, I am going to just go a bit faster, not because of any real reason, just to, speed it up along.
Has completely proved Bioware wrong with their superior methods of making games by using this one trick that no other game devs have ever heard of. What is this secret method?
Let me guess. Reusing your assets. That's my first guess. The second guess is treating your employees good. That's my second guess. Third guess is sticking to your guns. Those are my three guesses. Let's see if I'm right.
You might ask? Well, it's something we rarely see in games today, with microtransactions running rampant and games feeling more like a get-rich-quick scheme than an actual product. Larian decided to do something different than other developers. But before we get into that, first, do you remember Bioware? You know, that little old game developer based in the mythical land of Canada. For those who don't know, back in the day, they were the undisputed kings of RPGs, responsible for industry-moving titles like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Mass Effect, and let's not forget the amazing Dragon Age series. Well, the series isn't really all that amazing per se. It's more like the amazing Dragon Age Origins, because any other Dragon Age game kinda sucks massive ding-dong. Now,
I like Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age 2 is my favorite game.
I don't say this out of spite for Bioware. It's just a matter of fact.
Yes, dude. That definitely didn't come off as spiteful.
Dragon Age Origins. And then afterwards, play Dragon Age Inquisition.
Okay, so let's see
Sucks
with
massive
these two
ding-dong. Now, I don't say this out of spite for Bioware.
comparisons. Okay, so like cool explosions, whatnot. Now, here's the thing. This is in the Mage Tower, and this happens after like a couple of hours of gameplay. So this is now a couple of hours. So to be fair for Inquisition, would you not then go a couple of hours into that campaign and see one of the more, not later, but one of the more mid-game fights? What does he show?
Afterwards, play Dragon Age Inquisition.
He shows literally the fucking tutorial. That's a bit misleading, because yeah, this is how the tutorial looked like. Same with Dragon Age fucking Origins. It was just two dudes slapping each other. It like, at the most a fight was in Dragon Age Origins in the prologues was Dwarf Noble, where you fought a lot of Darkspawn, was Dwarf Commoner, where you fought a lot of Carter members, and the only other one I could think that has a lot of enemies is Dalish. That also had a lot of enemies. But like, again, the other ones are tutorials. They're not supposed to have a lot of enemies. So this is a bit of an unfair comparison to say, hey, look at this gameplay, which is, oh, look, special effects, cool, exciting explosions, whoa. And then here is the tutorial for Dragon Age Inquisition. Which is, wow, look.
It's
like my guy, this is a bit of an unfair comparison, right? I think, now, is this me saying Dragon Age Inquisition has really cool gameplay? It's fine gameplay. I think it's okay gameplay, but I think this comparison just makes your argument a bit weaker.
It's like night and day, people. It's not even close. Bioware has slowly gone down the shitter from 2010 and onward by changing their games to be more appealing to a mass audience and alienating their...
Okay, so now, listen to that specific word.
Bioware has slowly gone down the shitter from 2010 and onward by changing their games to be more appealing to a mass audience.
So Bioware changing their games to appeal to a mass audience. Now, there's a couple of things wrong with that, because that kind of removes EA out of the equation. And additionally, also removes out of some practices Bioware was doing. But to quickly say what I mean, Bioware made KOTOR, which is a cinematic game. There's no fucking way you can tell me that KOTOR 1 is not a cinematic RPG, for the time at least. And then what happens afterwards? They made Jade Empire, a cinematic fucking game. And you know what happened later? They made Dragon Age Origins, a cinematic fucking game. Then same with Mass Effect 1, a cinematic fucking game. And here's the thing, cinematic games are a lot more appealing to a mass audience than a fucking isometric RPG, with the text boxes taking half the screen. And the reason is because, and that is appealing to a mass audience. Now, is that bad? No, it's not. It's Bioware's decision that they went into that direction, because obviously Bioware's forte is in that sort of very heavy storytelling, heavy sort of control over a game than other studios like Obsidian or Larian. But let's just continue on with this.
Alienating their core fan base. On the other hand, Larian Studios has done the complete opposite by improving their niche with each iteration, resulting in not only unwavering support from their core audience, but also massive.
Okay, so I was right on point 3, which is, sticking to their guns. So let's see if I get point 1 and 2, which is reusing assets, and I can't remember the second one for the life of me. But the second one, I'll remember when we get there.
Exposure from an audience outside. As of recently, Bioware is also downsizing their team and shit-canning a lot of their employees. So yeah, the way that Bioware is going might just be over for them, if they don't learn from their mistakes. And I'm not wishing on their downfall and hoping to piss on their graves anytime soon. Although, that would be nice because of this shitty fucking launcher I'm forced to download every time I want to play one of their fucking games that I bought. Honestly, I'm just really salty and disappointed. I grew up playing these amazing RPGs, and to see them devolve into this...
Nigga what? Nigga what?
So now this is a sort of weird implication that Bioware did this intentionally, that hey, this animation, we did it intentionally, which is not true at all. Bioware did not intentionally make a bad game. No game developer intentionally makes a bad game. That's kind of weird to think of. Like, where does that logic come from? If you know any fucking game developer in real life, or just browsing Twitter, you can see that they're all fucking death cultists, okay? None of them actually want to make a bad game. They'll fucking sacrifice legions of themselves and their own people and themselves just to make a fucking good video game, okay? They are crazy fucking people. Like, you can make more money in a programming field in IT than you will as a game fucking developer programmer. Like, no one makes video games to be greedy or to make a bad product like this.
Nigga what?
Is heartbreaking, and these feelings have only been amplified after seeing the success of Larian
Now,
Studios.
is it fair to say, like, you're a bit disappointed with, like, newer content, newer games that Bioware came out? That's certainly fine, right? But don't imply that they did this intentionally. That's the issue that I have here, because that informs a lot of other statements that are wrong.
In Baldur's Gate 3. Just makes me feel like that Bioware could have definitely gone down the path of Larian if they weren't so goddamn greedy. They used to push out nothing.
Greedy? Like, where's the evidence for that, dude? Like, again, this is really removing EA's agency and basically making BioWare this sort of like, EA just like so happily acquired them just through weird circumstances, no reason whatsoever, and then BioWare just like jumped off a cliff with EA just like keeping hands off for the entire time. They were just like, whoa, what's happening, BioWare? I guess this is what you're gonna do now. I don't mind. That's really not accurate to the situation at all. EA has heavy influence in BioWare and influenced a lot of the decisions that came later on, such as with Dragon Age 2, and, well, Dragon Age 2 is a bit of a weird thing, we'll get to that point later, but they definitely influenced Dragon Age Inquisition, Anthem, and Andromeda.
But hits. But nowadays, these guys never fail to disappoint. I just hope they take some notes from Larian for their upcoming game, Dragon Age Dreadwolf. If that ever comes out, that is. But enough on the intro. You're probably wondering, how BioWare fucked up. BioWare first got its start in 1996 with the mech game Shattered Steel, which sold a whopping 170,000 units by 2002. That's exceptionally good for a brand new up-and-coming developer. But they didn't stop there. 2 years later, they acquired the rights to D&D and released the best CRPG ever made, Baldur's Gate 1. With all the success, they snowballed and kept releasing hits after hits after hits. But they...
Okay, just a quick point. Not a lot of people liked Neverwinter Nights when it came out. Not for the reason you may think. Neverwinter Nights is very fan tool focus. If you look at the Nexus or any other modding platforms for Neverwinter Nights, you can see a lot of people just make a lot of content for their game, and that's because BioWare made a content a modding machine rather than a video game with a story. That's very important to note. So it's good in that way, but it's not a hit for the reasons you think it is.
The occasional odd one out, but it was mostly...
Wait, how is Jade Empire a fucking odd one out?
Odd one out, but it was...
Wait, what? Jade Empire is like one of the fucking gems of BioWare's catalog. What the fuck do you mean, dude? What? No elaboration on that statement. Just it's an odd one out. Okay.
Mostly hits. Baldur's Gate 2, 2 million units sold. Neverwinter Nights, 1 million units sold. Knights of the Old Republic, 3 million. Mass Effect 1, 2 million. And it keeps going on and on. From 1998 to 2010, BioWare were the deities of role-playing games. No Western dev was even close.
That whole money units sold is a bit weird, especially because like Dragon Age Inquisition is the most sold BioWare game and I think only Andromeda overtook it. So it's a bit weird to say they've fallen when they've still been very successful.
To outputting as many solid, high-quality RPGs like Bioware. But of course, this wasn't enough for them. They wanted to expand. They wanted more money, more investors, more employees.
Which is true, obviously, but for EA, not Bioware.
And on top of that, more revenue.
Well, let's just wait to see.
How did they go about this? Well, instead of dominating their niche by improving the type of game that they're...
Yeah, so like no mention of EA at all. Like, does EA not influence any of this? Like, are you really sure that EA had no influence in Bioware whatsoever? It's like, that's really dumb, I think, because it really implies that every bad thing that Bioware did was due to their own incompetence or greed, which is wrong.
Core fan base already loved, like some other successful devs. They chose to alienate their core fan base by making games more appealing to a wider audience, or as I like to call it, normified. They took their...
One, there's nothing wrong with making a normie game, fucker. Like, if people like Call of Duty, who fucking gives a shit? The issue I think that you should be saying is Bioware shouldn't have made a normified game for Dragon Age or Mass Effect, right? They shouldn't have done that. That's a much more stronger argument, because then it's saying that, hey, Bioware should have stuck with their guns and said, hey, here's DAO combat, we carry it forward through the series. There's no difference, no change, we're just going to carry it forward through the series. And saying that, oh, if they changed it to make it more normie, that's a bit bad, not because normie gameplay is wrong, but simply because that's not what Dragon Age's identity is. That's a much better argument, and this argument of like they made it normified, which is implying that making a game that appeals to a lot of people is bad, is kind of dumb. Like, I don't know, dude. I think it's fine if people enjoy games that are like for a lot of people, you know? Not every game has to be some fucking micro niche of a micro niche of a micro niche. That doesn't really make much sense, you know?
Their titles, which were known for their RPG elements, and normify them
Oh, and then
to appeal to the largest audience.
Obviously, let's just talk about Dragon Age Inquisition here. Dragon Age Inquisition, like with Skyrim, Skyrim influenced a lot of RPGs after its release. For good, better, and worse, it influenced Dragon Age Inquisition as well. And here's the thing with EA and how they come into the picture. EA, as you see for a lot of people who talk about EA behind the scenes and whatnot, EA is weird with a lot of their studios. They have this pseudo hands-off approach, but it's not really hands-off. There's a lot of like, hey, we saw X game do very successfully. We think you should maybe perhaps do a few things like that. And when they don't do, and when developers don't do things like that, they then push them forward into that direction, trying to imply more that they should go there if they want more funding, if they want more devs, if they want any real chance at making the game. They do that a lot, and you can definitely see with Dragon Age Inquisition, politically, a lot of the decisions with Dragon Age Inquisition was to sort of satisfy EA's want for money and satisfy Bioware's creative needs. Frostbite was an unviable tool that was not going to be able to make it. They probably could have used another tool, another engine, like Unreal Engine, or maybe stick with the Eclipse engine and try to expand it. There's a bit of issues with that, but they could have done something. But Frostbite was the only politically right answer within EA, because EA themselves wanted to push that, because Patrick Sutherland, who was the CEO of DICE, where the Frostbite engine happened, wanted to implement that as the EA engine, basically, and which forced Bioware to change engines, obviously. Now, again, this is very complicated. This requires a lot of like depth and whatnot, but I can show you with this. So this is Mark Dara, and he's taking some questions about like a few weeks ago, and yeah, I want to show that specific one where he talks about Frostbite. Now, if I can find it, not that one. There's a lot of issues with Frostbite that when it comes to animations, yeah, okay.
Whose decision was it to start using Frostbite? I mean, the short answer is it was the only politically viable answer for Dragon Age Inquisition. So I guess EA.
So yeah, Mark Darrah, who was an executive producer on all the Dragon Age games, Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, and all the DLCs, basically pointed out that, yeah, Frostbite was the only viable one because EA kind of forced it upon them. Now, it wasn't a forcing of like, oh yeah, EA like mandated it. No, they didn't mandate it. They implied it heavily though. It was, hey Bioware, make your own engine or use our engine. And the cost to making your own fucking engine is astronomical. So I'm just preparing here. If I'm correct. So at the 12-minute mark, just to prepare the next part. Okay.
Audience.
But yeah, like again, Dragon Age Inquisition, I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's as good as it could have been. There's definitely things that it could have done better, but the thing is that a lot of its decisions was not done because Bioware hates people and wants to make money. No, that was EA's department. Bioware wanted to make a good game, but Bioware was restricted in a lot of ways to make a game that EA wanted more, and they were rewarded for that. Dragon Age Inquisition sold quite well, and it told EA that, like, hey, if we do more of this, we will do well. And, you know,
Time was the console Call of Duty FPS gamers and the Bethesda boys. You know what kind of games they wanted.
Bethesda fans want Bethesda games, and Call of Duty fans want Call of Duty. Not a lot of overlap there. Like, Call of Duty does not contain people who like RPGs too much. There are some people, obviously, but they have their own microcosm in games that they like. It's more action focused, obviously, and an RPG isn't that in their wheelhouse. I'm not sure of the overlap nor the evidence of that.
You have to admit, the popularity of these two genres really skewed the gaming industry in the wrong direction for a little bit, with promising devs trying their hardest to follow.
I don't think the wrong direction. Not to say that it's good that a lot of games just became open world games, simply that their existence allowed a lot of executives just say like, oh yeah, we found the next formula to milk for 50 million years. Yay. Like, it's fine that those games exist, you know. It's just like, they should exist for a reason. They should exist because a game developer wants to make a game like that.
With them. Anyways, back to Bioware. Bioware catered to this crowd with the release of Mass Effect 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition. With Mass Effect 2, they decided to cut a lot of the art.
Whoa, wait, Mass Effect, say that again?
2 and Dragon Age Inquisition.
What the? You do realize there were a few games that released between those, like Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age 2. What? Okay. Claim here, I think they're just trying to make, is obviously that Bioware pivoted towards that, which is true, I guess, but like, what? Mass Effect wasn't really that much of an RPG in the sense of like Baldur's Gate or like similar RPGs to that, like Planescape Torment. Like, Mass Effect 2 was just a more action-focused Mass Effect 1. Like, there's no real difference between the RPG choices, yeah. Like, structurally, yeah, sure, Mass Effect 2 is less plot-focused than Dragon Age, than in Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 1 is definitely more plot-focused, and Mass Effect 2 is more character-focused, but that's not really wrong, nor out of Bioware's wheelhouse. They've always been focused on characters.
Mass Effect 2, they decided to cut a lot of the RPG elements. With Dragon Age Inquisition, they...
Mass Effect 1 didn't have a lot of RPG elements. The only things that really cut from is like gameplay stuff. Like, you didn't have a wide variety of weapons anymore. You couldn't use all the weapon slots. You couldn't have a like smorgasbord of powers. Like, mechanically, sure, but like narratively, it's the same as Mass Effect 1. Like, I don't know what limits that they've put on RPG for Mass Effect 2 for Mass Effect 1. Unless you're saying that they should have made Mass Effect 2 more like Dragon Age Origins, which is kind of not the point of Mass Effect.
They decided to do a vast open world instead of tight, neatly packed levels. That's not all they changed. Did you want decent loading times while playing Mass Effect 2 on PC? Well...
Weird complaint, I guess. Back to the, again, open world argument. Bioware, obviously, I think maybe would have done an open world, I'm not sure. But they definitely didn't do it solely. The influence a lot was EA, and they definitely pushed a lot more for the open world than that. Also, the loading times is a bit of a weird complaint. Like, it's not that long.
Well, that might make the console players feel inferior, so let's artificially make the loading screens longer on PC, so the console boys don't get upset. They also
What?
console boys don't get upset. They also eliminate.
Okay.
So let's artificially make the loading screens longer on PC, so the console boys don't get
Such a
upset.
weird
They also eliminate.
Small complaint that doesn't really work for his video. It's like, oh yeah, Bioware made a long loading time. When it's like, okay, it's not that long. I remember playing it back in the day, and it wasn't that long.
Most of the RPG elements that were in Mass Effect 1. Some good, a lot bad, but still, the XP system was completely butchered in Mass Effect.
Not butchered. The XP system in Mass Effect 2 was given out as like very specific rewards and missions. You can say that Mass Effect, again, weird thing to say that like, yeah, they removed RPG elements, some bad, some worse. It's like, what? Like, okay.
A lot bad, but still, the XP system was completely butchered in Mass Effect.
Yeah, not really. Again, like, the XP system, or how XP was given out in Mass Effect 2 was very mission focused, instead of just, like, enemy focused and, like, collection focused, which isn't bad, exactly. Like, it's whatever, you know? You removed the fact that you could level up during a mission, I guess. I don't know how valuable that is, especially for Mass Effect. Mass Effect was never, like, that full of an RPG. It was more of a narrative RPG than a mechanical RPG. And I don't think... And here's my hot take. I don't think mechanics, a very mechanically intense RPG, makes a fucking RPG. Like, Dark Souls is called a RPG. Like, what are the fucking choices you make in Dark Souls? Dark Souls 1, you make the choice to, like, I guess, at the end, to choose the dark ending and the light ending. I can't remember the names for those. In Dark Souls 2, you get to be king or not. In Dark Souls 3, you get to do the dark ending, the light ending, or some version of Dark Souls 2's Become a King ending. Like, those aren't really RPG choices, are they? Like, I guess you could, like, kill characters, but that's not really RPG-ish, because you don't really get to interact with them, with your character, with words, dialogue, and interactions. You just get to kill them or not. That's not really that meaningful narratively. So, again, I don't really think this is a meaningful complaint, especially considering what Mass Effect is.
Effect 2. With you getting a dedicated amount of XP after each quest, which felt completely pointless. But I'm not here to tell you how good Mass
fine.
Effect 1 is, and how completely inferior, not even close to as good as Mass Effect 1 that Mass Effect 2 is. What I'm trying to say here is that Mass Effect 2 was the point where Bioware stopped caring.
What do you mean stop caring? What? Like, Mass Effect is still an RPG, just a different RPG, sure, but like, that didn't mean Bioware stopped caring. You really fucking assume that people in making Mass Effect 2 are like, hey dude, should we like put effort in? And the other guy's like, nah, we shouldn't put effort in. Okay. It's like, what? What is this weird like implication that Bioware is just like fucking insane and hates gamers and hates RPGs and wants to make bad games? Like, what? Like, they made Mass Effect 2, they thought of Mass Effect 2 and then made that Mass Effect 2. Like, Mass Effect 2 from concept to final game is remarkably similar, right? And that's an achievement. They made the game that they wanted to make. They cared a lot about it. Now, did they make an RPG on par to like Dragon Age Origins with that many choices? No. But that wasn't the point of Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 wasn't trying to be that kind of RPG. Like, especially because like you couldn't really do it without like making a very set protagonist. Like,
About their loyal
it's really missing the point of like what Mass Effect 2 is.
audience and decided to change some things up a bit. And guess what? It worked. For a bit at least. With Mass Effect 2 selling a whopping 5 million copies and being critically acclaimed on top of that. But you know what
For a bit? What? Like Dragon Age
they say?
Inquisition? Your whole argument hinges on the fact that Bioware pivoted so that they could make more money. And if you said for a bit, that doesn't make fucking sense, dude. Because they're still successful. Anthem may not be a successful game, but that's for different reasons. But Andromeda and Inquisition were at least fairly successful games, with Inquisition being the most successful Bioware game, I think.
Greatest stars always burn out the fastest, and that's exactly how they went. After testing the waters with Mass Effect 2 and other games, they
What?
decided to go all out with catering to the masses. They spent more time on normalizing their games instead of making them better.
Well, okay, hold on. The timeline here is fucking weird. What?
Mass Effect 2 and other games, they decided
Wait. So is this leading to Anthem? Okay, so they made normie game bad, to then from like Mass Effect 2 all the way to Inquisition, and then they made Andromeda or Anthem. What? What is the timeline here? I need to hear this again.
with Mass Effect 2 and other games, they decided to go all out with catering to the masses. They spent more time on normalizing their games instead of making them better, which made games more popular, but there was
What?
a noticeable drop in quality, content, and refinement. And this is shown in the review scores. Dragon Age is a perfect example. In my opinion, Dragon Age Origins was a perfect CRPG. Well, not perfect, but it was definitely pretty fucking amazing. Had awesome
Okay.
characters, choices that mattered, and tons of beautiful D&D inspired gameplay, which resulted in
Do you want to give an examples of choices that mattered?
a noticeable difference when it
Also, wait, hold on. I'm gonna make fun of this guy's modding.
tons of beautiful D&D inspired gameplay.
Fucking what? Fucking what? What is this mod list, dude? Holy fucking shit. Awful. I never get Dragon Age Origins modders. They choose the worst fucking mod appearances ever, dude. Like, holy shit. This clashes so much with the style of Dragon Age Origins. Like, holy shit.
Choices that mattered, and tons of beautiful D&D inspired gameplay, which resulted in a noticeable difference when it comes to Steam scores. Despite having
Okay? Okay?
better graphics and better animations, it's clear that the two Dragon Age games have a disparity when it comes to overall enjoyment, with Origins clearly in the lead, and there's a reason for that. Origins, despite its issues, had a D&D-inspired CRPG system and amazing quests that old Bioware fans absolutely adored. This was completely ditched for an action RPG system with boring quests.
Okay, this is at least more into the game, at least, but like... wait, how did you guys die? Are you that bad at the game? What? Anyways. This is at least a bit better. I can say that Dragon Age Origins feels like that, but also like let's see this one. Okay. So let's compare.
Awesome characters, choices that
You
matter,
have
tons of beautiful D&D
you have this,
inspired
right? The guy's just like standing there. He's hitting.
gameplay, which
Like,
resulted
okay,
in a
yeah, he's
noticeable difference
hitting.
when it
Okay, cool. And then this one, you're also just standing there hitting.
RPG system with boring quests.
Like what? Like what's the difference between the two? Like what's the actual like feels different, dude? You can say that like it feels more button mashy because like you have to constantly be on a controller or on your keyboard just constantly doing that, while Dragon Age Origins is a lot more like hands off. That's a much more fair comparison. But like am I supposed to just like know this? Like where's your argument, dude? Like how is this bad gameplay?
ARPGs can be fun if done right. I love my fair share of ARPGs, don't get me wrong. But why? Why would you ever change this so drastically, completely abandoning your CRPG roots? Clearly they thought that CRPGs weren't the best for maximizing profits. Let's talk about Larian now, who has
Okay, so this is where I want to point out this video. And when Mark Dara says this,
Is this a new beginning for Dragon Age? Dragon Age is a weird franchise. It has had to reinvent itself every single time because of internal corporate pressures. This, like Inquisition, like DA2, will be different from the games that came before it. I think that's fine. It kind of become the part of the DNA of the franchise at this point.
okay, so now he says a lot here. One of the more interesting things is that a lot of the changes due to the Dragon Age franchise is made simply because a lot of internal corporate pressure, right? Which is EA, basically. EA changed a lot of the decisions. So, again, Bioware did not change the gameplay because they hate you and hate good games and want to make money. They didn't do that. The reason they changed it was because EA kind of forced them to change it. They kind of pressured them into making that sort of game, which, again, is all Bioware's fault, right? Unless you're saying, like, Bioware should have, like, fucking killed themselves so that they wouldn't have made bad game, which is, like, I guess a solution, but, like, not good for the people who work at Bioware, you know. But, you know, again, I don't get this idea. This is like really misunderstanding what actually went on with Bioware and why decisions were made, instead of, you know, like, oh, you know, it's Bioware's fault. We don't even think of EA here. EA doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not even a reality. Why are you saying EA? What's EA? I've never heard of her. Like, it's a weird thing to say.
Has recently become my favorite gaming studio. Larian has been releasing games for a while now, and they first started making CRPGs around the time Bioware pulled out, with the first one being Divinity Original Sin. Now, at first, it wasn't anything perfect, but with each iteration, they've gone better and better and improved on their mistakes. They stuck with the genre that Bioware completely abandoned, and instead of ditching it when the meta changed, they decided to master.
Bioware didn't ditch it. Like, again, there are other parts of the videos with Mark Darrow that basically says that Bioware probably should have been consistent with Dragon Age, and they should have stayed true to what it was, at least mechanically, and whatnot. And I agree with that, right? I think there's a strong thing with keeping a game mechanically the same throughout. It gives a lot more tying with the rest of the series. It also makes it a lot more identifiable when you look at it gameplay-wise. You can say, oh, this is Dragon Age, this is Dragon Age, this is Dragon Age, instead of having this like weird other things being the identifiable things, which aren't identifiable on screen, right? And a game's gameplay being identifiable very easily, especially for a franchise, is really good. I think that's a really good thing to do. But it's wrong to say that Bioware like ditched the tactics mechanics. They didn't. They kind of were forced to ditch it, you know? If Bioware... And here's the thing with Dragon Age that's a bit interesting. A lot of the design decisions for Dragon Age was influenced a lot by the sci-fi team. When KOTOR 1 came out, that changed a lot of things for Dragon Age, which at the time I don't remember what the project name was, but it changed. It caused basically Dragon Age Origins to be more cinematic. It was going to be just basically Baldur's Gate, but with maybe a bit better graphics, same isometric view and whatnot. But KOTOR came out, it changed the game. Wow, now I guess Bioware has to make cinematic games now. Dragon Age Origins has to be cinematic. Same with Dragon Age 2. Mass Effect was released. Dragon Age, the internal sort of thing with Bioware is then, okay, Dragon Age 2, Hawk has to be a voice protagonist now. And that's sort of just like how that became to be. So again, there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening, but like again, Bioware themselves like either follows their own culture when not being pressed by EA, but when pressed by EA they change a lot of their design decisions, which is why Dragon Age Inquisition is the way it is. It's because of EA's meddling. And to ignore that fact is to basically make Bioware out to be a villain for no reason other than you just fucking hate them. Which is fine, dude. Just say that. Don't lie about it, though.
It. And because of that, the most recent game, Baldur's Gate 3, has done extraordinarily well. It did so good, in fact, that it surpassed the expectations of Swen, the founder and CEO of Larian Studios. On August 4th, Swen expressed in a tweet that 100,000 concurrent players would be the max for Baldur's Gate 3, while showing a screen cap of the Steam charts showing 500,000 concurrent players. But the real max was 875,343 concurrents. This is what happens when you refine a niche, instead of completely abandoning it to appeal to a wider audience.
Baldur's Gate 3 does appeal to a wider audience, though. The game's very cinematic, though. Like, if Baldur's Gate 3 was... let me look here. Where is that image? Okay, here. If Baldur's Gate 3 was this, right? Or where is Divinity 2? Or if Baldur's Gate was this, right? Looked like this, right? With maybe a bit more graphics and whatnot. Baldur's Gate 3 would not have sold as fucking well. I guarantee you this. The game had to be cinematic, and that made a lot of people like it a lot more. The game had to have a lot of voice acting. That made it a lot more appealing. But here's the thing, right? No one really talks about this in that way because they think that appealing to a mass audience equals bad game, which is not the fucking case. Appealing to a mass audience is neutral. It depends on whether your decisions for that is because you want to do it or you're being forced to do it. There's a game called Pathologic, and that game is not fucking mass appeal. It is aggressively non-mass appeal. Yet it's a really good game. Why? Because it wasn't was it because it wasn't trying to cater to a mass audience? No, it was good because it was trying to do what it tried to accomplish. Just because it wasn't appealing does not mean that was the stated goal. The stated goal was to be what it wanted to be. It being not mass appeal was not a conscious decision of like, hey, we don't want to be mass appeal. Let's make the most unfriendly fucking video game ever. No, that wasn't the case, dude. Like, Larian was successful because they sticked to their guns, which you pointed out correctly.
Abandoning it to appeal to a wider audience. You create something new in industry
And
leading,
again, Bioware didn't abandon, it was EA who forced them to.
setting a new standard for RPGs throughout the entire gaming industry. Larian took action and decided to set the standard instead of being a slave to it. These two companies
What? Dude, Bioware was forced to do it by EA. Where's the mention of EA? This is like 7 minutes in, and where's EA's mention?
employ two completely different ideals. One is intent on following, and the other is intent on leading.
What? Fucker. Even... Okay. Here's the thing. Bioware is not that, like... does not offer a lot of RPG choices compared to Larian, right? And I'd argue Dragon Age Origins does not offer that many choices compared to, like, Baldur's Gate 3's. Why? Because Bioware does not give players that many fucking choices. Even in Baldur's Gate 1. Baldur's Gate 1, you are playing as Gorine's Ward, the Bale Spawn. That's who you are. You can never be anything else but that. You can customize them. You could be a different race. You could be a different alignment. You could have a lot of customizations within that framework. But you can't not be Gorine's Ward and the Bale Spawn. You cannot be Gorine's Ward, who's your foster figure. You can't have that. Larian doesn't fucking care. Do you want to play 7 characters that have predetermined backstories, or an 8th character where you're literally someone who fell out of the fucking sky? Sure, you can do that. Hey, do you want a story that's about a character? You can have the other ones. But we're making a game where you can do literally fucking anything, from killing people, out of combat, out of dialogue. You can do all of that sort of shit. Which is fine for what Larian was trying to do. But that really does show that, like, what Bioware RPGs are not what Larian RPGs are. It's a good game, but just, again, this weird comparison that, like, Bioware's following Larian's lead now is weird because they were never doing that in the first place.
That is why Larian is and will always be more respected than Bioware. Larian has learned not only from their mistakes.
I think, okay, here's the fucking thing. I think Larian should be respected because they made the game they wanted to. Not because they made a game that other game developers wouldn't want to make. That implies a lot of fucking spite that I don't really think is true for what Sven or people at Larian wanted to do.
But also the mistakes of Bioware. They were completely willing to take a risk and cut against the grain that is the consumer meta, even though they weren't sure it would pay off in the end, because they were intent on raising the bar. After seeing the success of Baldur,
No? What? Larian was not intent on raising the bar. They were intent on making the game they wanted to make. That's different.
Skate 3, I'm optimistic about the future of CRPGs and RPGs in general. I just hope that the cowards of the gaming industry like Bioware,
Cowards of the gaming industry. My gosh, no spite towards Bioware.
who blindly follow the meta hoping to maximize
Blindly
profits,
following the
take
meta.
notes, and make industry-leading games instead of industry-following games. So, yeah. That's the end.
But there's always someone bent on breaking the world.
Nice meme, dude. The entire video misses a lot of the point at what Bioware is trying to do, and also the influences that Bioware has. Bioware never wanted to make a bad game, and they, without EA's influence, never wanted to, stray too far from what they wanted to do, right? That's just what Bioware wanted. But the implication that's saying that Bioware, like, and especially with no mention of EA, right? That's really fucking dumb. To not mention EA is a weird thing to do because they influenced Bioware a lot, an extreme amount, to the point where a lot of the decisions they've made have, like, basically changed the sort of corporate structure within Bioware itself, right? They've heavily gutted Bioware in many ways. And again, this is such a weird video because if you just hate Bioware, then just say you fucking hate Bioware. You don't have to lie about it. You don't have to be, like, coy about it. You can just say, I hate Bioware, Bioware bad, Bioware should be dead. Wah. Sure, dude. That's fine. Just don't be dishonest and saying, like, it's something more than that. Because a lot of decisions of Bioware were not intentional. Now, some of them were intentional. Now, I will say that, like, the removing of some RPG mechanics is a bit intentional. You can definitely tell with KOTOR and Mass Effect and Jade Empire that a lot of the choices that you used to have were stripped away because they wanted to tell a story with a story and have characters and have them be a lot more impactful, right? Like, just having here, right? Garrison Tolly. You are kind of basically forced to take them in Mass Effect 1. There's no fucking option for you to get rid of them other than just not recruiting them at the start of the game. While with Baldur's Gate 1, 2, and Baldur's Gate 3, you have ample opportunity to get rid of your companions through a variety of means. Whether you just didn't want to recruit them in the beginning, whether you just want to kill them, whether you just want to not use them forever, there are a lot of ways for you to just not have your companions. But Bioware doesn't do that. You can tell even in Dragon Age Origins that it's very hard not to recruit your companions, and additionally, it's very hard to get rid of them. Alistair and Morgan are plot-relevant characters. They are central to it. You can get rid of them, but you need to do a lot of fucking legwork to get rid of them. You know? While with Larian, it's that fucking easy. You can just shove them into an ocean and not revive them. You can shove them into a cliff, or into a chasm. You can do a lot to get rid of your companions if you don't like them, or not recruit them at all. You're not beholden by that. But Bioware is different. They remove a lot of your RPG mechanics, and that's been a consistent thing. And I agree with that. I think that's fine, honestly, because I like the characters. I want them to be more part of the story, and I think that's fine. But obviously, that's a different design decision, you know? But yeah, this video, not pretty great. I think there's a lot of issues with it. It sort of removes EA's agency and just makes Bioware the ultimate people who, you know, made their downfall, which again is kind of wrong, you know? But yeah, whatever. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.